Frostblades of Katabasis on the Slayer, not the Warden still. We're going to keep it on the Slayer, so welcome back as this is day 2, my delightful delinquents. The name is Wolf, and as you can see, we are currently doing some progression on the red maps. I have finished progression in a lot of departments. The white maps are done, the yellow maps are 100% done, and I'm making a good dent into red maps. I'm starting to kill some bosses left and right. I've also progressed the actual league mechanic and figured out something about the ship. Turns out it's more of a rep mechanic more so than a value mechanic, at least in the early stages, which has been quite the revelation for loot as well. Speaking of loot, we have continued to be fortunate. I found an Enlightened, an Empower. I've managed to get my 6-link sorted. I got a nice lucky craft out of it, so we'll show you off the actual gear that you are looking at in the video currently on my character in the next stage, because it has been quite good. It's not end game by any means, because we need a relic cache for that, and if you are a fellow relic cache enjoyer, you know that thing is getting up in price there, so we have to find out how to farm effectively. But so far my Atlas strategy is working phenomenally. Everything is going down. The character is working better than expected. The clear is phenomenal. The speed is great. The damage is solid. Single target could use some love, but until we get relic cache, that's to be expected. But until then, yes, let's show you what we have done on day 2. So here's my little Lich King, my ice-infused Draugr. I'm a big fan of the Draugr aesthetic. I'm not sure though. Am I going to keep it with the snow color helmet, or am I going to keep it with the Kalguuran runesmith? It does feel more appropriate to be Kalguuran inspired at the moment, but I think I'm going to keep it with what I personally prefer. Having that said though, as you can see, we are level 89. We are a Slayer still. I'm going to keep it as a Slayer. And we have some wonderful gear here. Few pieces have changed, as you might have noticed. We're still using the White Wind with Frost Blink, Summon Skitterbots, and Bone Chill. We have the Heat Shiver still, with Blood Rage now, Whirling Blinds, and faster attacks, which also means we don't need to have phasing. And then we also have Herald of Ice. I am wondering, however, if I want to maybe set up a different setup, because I do have access to an Enlightened and an Empower, which I found. So hopefully we can maybe do something with that once they are leveled. But until then, this is more than fine. We have a slightly different amulet to help with some attributes. I still have to fix my attributes up because I'm still wasting 2 points here to get more intelligence so I can wield everything. But as you can see, we need 131 intelligence as a result of the White Wind. And until then, it is necessary. But we can hopefully also maybe get rid of that in the future by getting a Claw, which is ultimately the end game anyway. So we'll see how that turns out. Until then, though, we have attributes right here. We have a little bit of accuracy, life, and just some resistances. But more importantly, the mana regen has been very useful since we still lack the mana craft here. I want to do the prefix minus mana cost craft, but I haven't found it yet. So fingers crossed. I can find Enlightens, but I can't find the damned craft. So go figure. However, what I have been able to make is this wonderful chest piece right here. Got very lucky with an Exalt Slam. As you can see, we have some incredible armor values. No life, which is done on purpose as a result of the life mastery on the passive tree, giving us loads of life. But on top of that, we have some really good resistances. We have some Eldritch crafting we still have to do, which allows me to get rid of the Fortify support at some point. But until then, we have Fortify, Multi-Strike, Crit Strike, Inspiration, Ice Bite, and Frostblades, which is probably the greatest setup right now for the current state of my character. But I'm very happy about how this turned out. It's 6-linked, fairly simple as well, so I'm very fortunate on that. This has been a very lucky league start for me. Speaking of luck, we have the Taming still. Southbound is still popping off with Mark on Hit and Assassin, combined with an automation on top of a Steel Skin. Helps against bleeding, helps against with a little bit more effective hit points, very nice. A big change as well for now is the Perseverance belt. We switched into that for perma onslaught basically, but also just a little bit of value for attack damage, life, and resistances. Ultimately, this is going to be hopefully a well-corrupted Anguish belt once we get Relic Cache, but we all know that Relic Cache is not a cheap thing. But what is a cheap thing is the Dark Ray Vectors. They are still popping off, very lovely. Auto Exertion and Enduring Cry. I'm still having 2 slots open, which probably will have to do with the fact that we're going to have to tech in a General's Cry for some Rage tech that we're working on, and maybe a Life Tap in case we get stuck with some cost issues, but we'll see how that turns out. If not, maybe I can tech in the Enlightened and find maybe some other shenanigans I can push out. That could be very, very fun. But yes, we'll see how that turns out. I am looking to drop the mana flask the moment I have to craft, but as I said, I have not been lucky enough yet. So we'll see how that turns out. It's going to probably be a jade flask, and in the end, an onslaught flask, a silver flask, basically, if we drop the perseverance belt. But until then, it's probably going to be jade. I could do a quartz, but I'm already spell suppress capped, so I think that would be wasteful. And since we don't need phasing with whirling blades, I don't think that's necessary. Speaking of what things are necessary, as you can see, we have recently also respec'd our talent tree a little bit. No more wasted points of physical damage with the physical attack, since we are pretty much all frost. We also have the Veteran's Wrath. I'm still using Maximum Rage. This is going to change once we pick up Natural Authority, which is going to give way to a Warcry Mastery that will give us Rage. We still are enjoying the Tribal Fury with the additional Nearby Enemy Strike. We pick up a bunch of life every single Frenzy Charge we can, including Disciple of the Unyielding and Disciple of the Slaughter. I am still using Charge Duration just because of quality of life. If I needed more damage, which I don't feel like I need, I could actually switch to increased damage per endurance charge for a nice bump there, but I'm going with the charge duration. It's just comfier on bosses. I still need to waste or find a way to get rid of these 2 points. They're just there to make sure that we can wield our weapon. Very wasteful, but it is what it is. Fang of Frost, Cold Mastery. We have some entrench action here. This is part of our spell suppress cap together with Inveterate. We also still have Primeval Force, or Primeval Force. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. With the invert, which is just so incredibly strong. I'm still using the freeze, because freeze is too important, so we want to have a good chance to freeze. Although you could argue that the other side might be better in the end, depending on our crit chance, but we'll see how that turns out. We also have one with nature, herbalism. We are still in need of accuracy. Hopefully in the end we can use a hits can't be evaded craft, which will allow us to get all these points back and maybe start pushing clusters, but until then we do need accuracy. More frenzy, more crit. I'm probably going to pick up a spell suppress mastery, otherwise the crit multi-mastery against single target, which is going to help out with bosses, which is probably the weakest aspect of this build so far. Although, granted, a lot of people are saying that when they have no idea that they need to pick up the mark mastery right here to get frenzy charge generation. So perhaps people need to, consider that before they speak. We also pick up more life where we can, more frenzy charges. And the dagger, since we are still using a dagger, we're going to switch that to the claw once we have the claw sorted. But until then, though, my next couple of levels will most likely be masteries or basic dual sockets, because we have one here for a singular point. Then we have another one here for a singular point. And then a lovely here for 2 points, which is just very comfy. There's a lot of value in the next 4 points if we decide to do that, which also allows me to tech in intellect on the actual jewels and then get rid of this, right? So I can actually just save 2 points and immediately pick up these two, sort my intellect out. So I think that's what I'm going to do, but that's neither here nor there. It's only day 2. We have figured out a lot of stuff about the mechanic, and we're going to try to maximize that. So thank you all so much for popping in on day 2. If luck continues the whole, day 3 will be massive, because we have done pretty much all the progression for mapping almost. We're almost done with red. We can pick up our void stones all together soon as well. And then we can just start farming and starting to develop some strats to get rich. Or die trying. We'll see how it goes out. Until then, hope your league starts are going well. If you want to check out this build, I do have it linked in my league start recommendations, which I will put in the description box below. Other than that, thank you so much for hanging. Have a good night. Take care. And I am out.